Defense mechanisms are psychological strategies that individuals use to protect themselves from anxiety, stress, and unpleasant emotions. These mechanisms are unconscious and operate automatically. Defense mechanisms were first described by Sigmund Freud in his psychoanalytic theory. According to Freud, these mechanisms protect the conscious mind from contradictions between the animalistic id and the idealistic superego, ultimately contributing to mental homeostasis. Some common defense mechanisms include denial, refusing to acknowledge or accept reality. Repression, pushing distressing thoughts and memories out of consciousness. Projection, attributing one's own unpleasant thoughts or feelings to others. Displacement, redirecting emotions from the original source to a safer outlet. Regression, returning to a previous stage of development in response to stress. Rationalization, creating logical explanations to justify unacceptable behavior. Sublimation, channeling unacceptable impulses into socially acceptable actions. Identification, taking on the characteristics or traits of another person. It is important to note that defense mechanisms are not inherently bad or good and can be used in a healthy or unhealthy way depending on the situation. Here is a more detailed explanation of some common defense mechanisms. Denial. Denial is a defense mechanism in which an individual refuses to accept or acknowledge the existence of a painful or stressful reality. This can involve denying the existence of a problem, the feelings associated with it, or even the reality of the situation. Denial can be a temporary coping mechanism, but if it becomes a chronic pattern, it can interfere with an individual's ability to address and resolve problems in their life. For example, a person who is addicted to alcohol may deny that they have a problem. Repression. Repression is a defense mechanism in which an individual unconsciously pushes thoughts, memories, or feelings that are too painful or distressing to consciously deal with into the unconscious. This allows the individual to avoid dealing with or being aware of these thoughts, memories, or feelings. Repression can be seen as a form of self-protection, as it allows the individual to avoid the emotional pain associated with certain memories or experiences. However, repressed thoughts and feelings can still have an impact on an individual's behavior and emotions, even if they are not consciously aware of them. Repression can be a normal and adaptive mechanism, but if it becomes excessive, it can lead to problems with memory, emotional regulation, and overall psychological well-being. For example, a person who has experienced a traumatic event may repress the memory of it in order to avoid experiencing the associated emotional pain. Projection. Projection is a defense mechanism in which an individual attributes their own unacceptable or unwanted thoughts, feelings, or behaviors to someone else. This allows the individual to avoid accepting responsibility for their own actions or emotions and, instead, blame others for their problems. Projection can also involve attributing one's own negative traits or characteristics to others, such as calling someone else lazy when the individual is the one who is actually feeling lazy. This defense mechanism can be harmful as it can lead to conflicts and misunderstandings with others, as well as prevent the individual from taking responsibility for their own behavior and making positive changes. For example, a person who is feeling guilty about something may project their guilt onto someone else and accuse them of being guilty instead. Displacement. Displacement is a defense mechanism in which an individual redirects their emotions, thoughts, or behaviors from a more threatening or overwhelming target to a less threatening or less overwhelming one. This allows the individual to cope with difficult or stressful situations by directing their emotions, thoughts, or behaviors towards a safer outlet. This can be a normal and adaptive mechanism, but if it becomes excessive, it can lead to problems with impulse control, emotional regulation, and can cause conflicts with others. For example, an individual who is feeling angry at their boss for criticizing them at work, may come home and take out their anger on a family member, children, partner, or pet. Regression. Regression is a defense mechanism in which an individual retreats to a previous stage of development, in order to cope with difficult or stressful situations. This can involve reverting to childlike behavior or thinking patterns, or even experiencing physical symptoms that were present in childhood. For example, an adult who is feeling overwhelmed by stress may begin to suck their thumb or wet the bed. Regression can also involve the use of immature coping strategies, such as temper tantrums or crying. This defense mechanism can be a normal and adaptive response to stress, but if it becomes excessive or chronic, it can interfere with an individual's ability to function in their daily life and can also cause problems in personal relationships. Another example, a person who is feeling overwhelmed may begin to act like a child and throw tantrums. Rationalization. This is a defense mechanism in which an individual justifies their own thoughts, feelings, or behaviors by creating logical or socially acceptable explanations for them, even when these explanations are not entirely true or accurate. This allows the individual to avoid accepting responsibility for their own actions or emotions and, instead, blame others or external factors for their problems. This defense mechanism can be harmful as it can prevent an individual from taking responsibility for their own actions, learning from their mistakes, and making positive changes. For example, a person who cheats on a test may rationalize their behavior by saying that they were just trying to do their best. Or, an individual who is fired from their job for poor performance may rationalize their dismissal by saying that the company was going through a lot of changes or that the boss didn't understand their work. Rationalization can also be used to justify negative or unacceptable thoughts or behavior by finding excuses or reasons for them. Sublimation. Sublimation is a defense mechanism in which an individual channels their unacceptable or negative impulses, desires, or emotions into socially acceptable or even positive actions. This allows the individual to cope with difficult or stressful situations by redirecting their energy into constructive or productive outlets. For example, a person who has a lot of anger and aggression may channel these feelings into a physically demanding sport, such as kickboxing or martial arts. This allows them to express these emotions in a healthy and controlled way, rather than acting out in harmful or destructive ways. Sublimation can also involve redirecting one's own impulses or desires towards creative outlets, such as painting, writing, or music. Sublimation is considered to be a positive defense mechanism, as it allows individuals to find healthy and constructive ways to deal with their negative emotions and impulses, and also allows them to channel their energy towards positive goals and activities. Identification. Identification is a defense mechanism in which an individual takes on the characteristics, attitudes, or behaviors of another person in order to cope with difficult or stressful situations. This allows the individual to deal with their own problems by identifying with someone who they perceive as more powerful or successful. For example, a child who admires a parent or an older sibling may begin to emulate their behavior, mannerisms, or even their way of speaking. This allows the child to feel more confident, capable, and secure in themselves and the world. Identification can also involve taking on the characteristics, attitudes, or behaviors of a role model or a celebrity. This defense mechanism can be seen as a normal and adaptive mechanism, as it allows individuals to learn from others and develop their own sense of identity, but if it becomes excessive it can lead to problems with self-esteem and self-identity, as well as conflicts with others. It's worth noting that these defense mechanisms were first identified by Sigmund Freud and later expanded upon by other theorists such as Anna Freud, his daughter, Carl Jung, and Karen Horney among others.